Would you be the jerk for trying to force your kid to sell their inheritance? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for giving my sister-in-law 3 days notice that I would no longer make a cake for her daughter's 3rd birthday after finding out she and her parents told others my history? I, 28-year-old female, love to bake and I'll often make cakes and stuff for friends, and since I met my in-laws in 2018, for them as well. My sister-in-law asked me to bake her daughter's birthday cake for her birthday this weekend. This was back in October, and we discussed what she wanted in detail. It's not my first time making her cakes, but it is my first time as her sister-in-law officially, and where I felt I was truly a part of the family. 3 days ago, I was out grocery shopping and I ran into a family friend of my in-laws. This person is not someone I like very much. She's a bad gossip and seems to have some malice in her while sharing gossip about others. I try to be polite to everyone, and normally I don't talk to her, but she stopped me and went out of her way to ask me when my husband and I are having kids. Then she mentioned me being a foster kid and an affair baby, and she did it in a way that was meant to come across as actual concern, but was really her being intrusive and cruel. She mentioned that my in-laws and sister-in-law were concerned about our kids not having anyone. I told my husband when he got home from work and I was a mess. It might seem dumb, but I felt like his family betrayed the trust I put in them, and they did the one thing they were asked not to do, which was tell people about my history. It's not something I want to broadcast to everyone who knows me. My husband confronted his parents and sister, and they said they only mentioned it to a few close circle people, and they defended it when my husband said that wasn't okay. Sister-in-law said it's not like people wouldn't find out eventually, and he asked her how they would find out if we never told them. My history is that both my parents were married to others and had children with their other spouses when they had an affair. I was the result. Both sets of first children were technically adults or close to it when I was born. The day before my 5th birthday, we were in the car together and it crashed. My parents died, and so did the people in the other car. I was the only survivor, and I was in the hospital for a few weeks after. Nobody in either of my parents' families wanted me, and I was brought up in foster care the rest of my life. I never found a family. After hearing sister-in-law say what she did and realized how unapologetic they were, and hearing how little they cared about what they did to me, I asked if I could speak to sister-in-law for a second and told her not to expect a cake from me after going against what I wanted and having such little care for the harm it caused. She went crazy and said it was only 3 days until the birthday party, and my husband backed me up and said, so what? She and her parents were blowing up his phone so bad he had to block them, and I worry that I'm being a bit of a jerk saying no with such short notice. Am I the jerk? I would feel like most people would agree in saying that OP is not the jerk here. There's certainly regrets to be had about opening up to these people, expecting them to be, respectful of the fact that you don't want that shared around. I mean, it's a clear-cut violation of trust, and I feel like you can understand why OP feels the way they do. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for not giving a cupcake to a child who is not originally on the guest list? I, 24-year-old female, recently returned to my hometown after being away for college and work. My grandma often hosts a potluck party where her 3 kids and their families can hang out. I'm a pretty good baker, and the couple of times I brought baked goods over, I got lots of compliments, especially from the kids. For the potluck we had last week, I had promised to make a cupcake for each and every kid. 8 kids, all under 9. The adults would get a 2-pound cake to be shared. I elaborately decorated the cupcakes and made sure I made enough. I didn't have the energy to make extras. On the day of the party, one of my cousins brought her boyfriend and his kid Gina, 7-year-old female, over unannounced. Gina saw the cupcakes each kid got and wanted one too, so my cousin brought her to me to ask for a cupcake. I apologized and told them that all the cupcakes were spoken for and that she was welcome to have a slice of the 2-pound cake as it was the same flavor. Gina said she wanted the pretty cupcake. My cousin then said I should just give her one because she was sure at least one of the kids would not show up. Again, I refused, saying that I promised all the kids a cupcake and would feel awful if anyone had to miss out on the promised cupcake. My cousin then walked away with Gina. She was right though, as one of our cousin's girl, Amy, 8-year-old female, was sick and couldn't come. However, her dad and older brother did, and the brother asked if he could take the cupcake back home to Amy, and I said yes. My cousin and Gina were in the kitchen when I brought the cupcake inside to pack it up for Amy. When they saw me packing the cake, they asked me about it, and I said it was for Amy who was sick. Pictures from the party were recently posted. Many parents posted pictures of their kids with my cupcake. My cousin sent me a message telling me that Gina was really upset that Amy, who wasn't even at the party, got a cupcake while she didn't. She said I was the jerk for hurting a little girl's feelings. I think I did the right thing giving the cupcake to Amy, as I did promise her one. Still, Gina was right there at the party. Am I the jerk? Personally, I don't think OP's the jerk here. Every cupcake was accounted for and purposefully made. It's great and it's very understandable that they want to take that cupcake back for Amy to enjoy. And yeah, it's just understandable that there wasn't any cupcakes left for somebody who was unaccounted for. Our next story is, am I the jerk for snapping at my wife to get out of my room and calling her a brat? For context, I, 34-year-old male, work as a hospice nurse in my country specifically for children. This job means a lot to me, but it can get very overwhelming and hard to function, especially seeing small children suffer. My wife, 37-year-old female, is a stay-at-home mom to our kids, 10-year-old son and 6-year-old daughter. After work, I need to spend 30 minutes to an hour by myself to just let go of all the negativity and sadness and stress I have. And before you jump to conclusions after this time to myself, I give my wife a break. I take over the cooking of dinner, making snacks for the kids next day, help with homework and washing dishes and any other pending housework. My wife has recently just been slamming into my room. It's just a tiny room with a bed and a mini fridge with Coca-Cola in it, and demanding I take over or do something instead of just sulking in my room. It's especially annoying when you're meditating and someone just starts screaming at you non-stop. I've talked to her, but she says it's selfish that she has to take care of the kids while I act like a kid and cry and get drunk over my job. I told her that it's hard for me and that I don't drink and it is emotionally draining. So I don't want to bring that negativity into my family. She just started to scream at me, so I snapped at her to just get out because she's acting like a brat. She went silent and is now giving me the silent treatment. Am I the jerk? Personally, I don't think OP's the jerk here, but a good suggestion I saw somebody mention is there a place or a way that OP could do this de-stressing or this meditating before they get home? So like a public park or something, someplace where it kind of just gives their partner the illusion that as soon as they get back, it is go time. I think in general though, within reason, it's not really fair for somebody to get home from working a full day at work, especially one as emotionally taxing as OP does, and is expected immediately to hop onto another shift essentially. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my sister she'll have to care for her mother alone? I'm a 16-year-old male and my sister is 15-year-old female. Our dad was married to my mom and he cheated on her while she was pregnant with me. And a few weeks after I was born, knocked up his now wife with my sister. My mom kicked him to the curb and I lived with her mostly, and saw my dad every other weekend until I was 6. Then my mom died from complications from her asthma and I had to live with my dad. The reason I said dad is because he was never really one. Like, yeah, we lived with him for years, but he's never been active in mine or my sister's life. Never showed up to anything or spent time with us. His wife was the one, and I hate her. After my mom died, she tried to call herself my mom. Tried to insert herself into my mom's funeral planning and insisting on me not being named as her son in the obituary or anything. She and my grandparents and aunts and uncles fought until they kicked her out. She tried to get dad to back her up and say she had the authority over me, but he did nothing. So I was with my grandparents for a few days, and by the time I returned, she told me she was my mom now and I should have respected her more. I was very disrespectful to her for years. I know I was. I don't even feel bad about it. I made her life heck, and dad was never around to do anything. She always made things worse too by insisting she was my mom. My sister hated me for treating her mom that way, and because she doesn't remember my mom, or remember the times when I wasn't always there, she always refused to believe that I do, and she tells me her mom is my mom in all the ways that matter. She told me it was crazy how I made it seem like my mom did more than hers, or that I'm closer to my mom who died before I could remember her, when her mom was always there. She also told me I should be glad I got to have a bigger family when my mom died, so my sister and I aren't close either. My sister's mom was diagnosed with a neurological disease in June. She's already struggling with some stuff and has regular medical appointments. Dad is basically gone all the time now. He's not helped his wife at all and isn't around for us, which isn't new, but he's also bringing less money home. My sister's upset about her mom and has taken her anger out on me. She is so disrespectful about my mom and has wished she could do stuff to her grave when she's really trying to piss me off. But the other day, she told me my mom was disgusting and ugly, that she had been a bad wife and mom, and that was why Dad chose her mom. She told me her mom was so much better and I should be grateful for her and doing everything I can. She told me we had to take care of her now. I looked her in the eye and told her she was all alone in taking care of her mom because I hate her mom and would never help her. She got really upset and broke down crying and ran off to her room. Yesterday, she told me I was such a jerk and I'm meant to be her brother and I should love her enough to be better and support her. Am I the jerk? I don't fault OP one bit for saying what they said or feeling how they feel. It's crazy that even now as an adult with the capability to fully understand and think things through, simply because they have no concept of OP's mom being around or life before OP being around in their life, that they just have this warped perception of how OP's world should be. It's just ridiculous the way OP's been treated by both of them. I don't blame OP one bit. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not drinking the coffee that my boyfriend has made for me? I, 24-year-old female, have been with my boyfriend, 25-year-old male, for 3.5 years. He knows I'm a bit specific about certain things like tidying up, or how I like to cook certain dishes, and not to annoy him with those. I always make sure that I make them myself. Now, my morning coffee is very specific. I like 2 teaspoons of instant coffee with 2 teaspoons of hazelnut syrup, filled to half the cup with boiling water, and the rest filled with oat milk. And I like that in my specific morning coffee mug. I do realize that I sound very annoying, but because I'm aware of that, I always make it myself, and would never ask for someone to make me my coffee exactly like that. When my colleagues are making me a coffee, I take whatever they make me and I say thank you very much. For 3.5 years, my boyfriend has seen me make my morning coffee this way and got fed up with me refusing that he makes coffee for me, so I've shown him several times exactly how I like it, but still, every time he makes it for me, it's not the right dose of coffee or hazelnut syrup or it isn't the right cup. I can get over that one, to be fair. And I swear I do not want to be that annoying, but the coffee just doesn't taste how I'm craving for it to taste. It's like my body isn't satisfied with it and I keep craving my coffee until I get it. But I don't want to have 2 coffees in the morning. I've told my boyfriend that I appreciate his gesture, but to let me make my coffee in the morning. This morning he got annoyed when he asked me if I wanted coffee in bed, and I said no, I'll make it. He said, I know you're gonna get up and make one, just trust me. So I trusted him, and he made me a machine espresso coffee with a bit of syrup and some milk. I said thanks, but I don't want to drink machine espresso in the morning. Never have I ever drank machine coffee in front of him. I don't like it, and only ever buy capsules for him because I'm able to remember how he likes his coffee. He got really angry at me, told me he's just trying to be nice and I'm being a jerk about it. I very much disagree. It has been freaking 3.5 years, and I have shown him at least 10 times how I like my coffee. At this stage, I just think he's trying to make a point that I'll like any coffee, but I just don't. I can taste the difference, and I don't understand why he won't just make me coffee that I like if he's that desperate to make me a coffee. Once again, I have never asked him to do that for me. I do not feel grateful for the gesture at all either, but am I being a spoiled jerk? You told him about 10 times over the span of 3 years and they still can't get it right? Something has to be going on here, and yeah, I wonder if it is malicious. I'm not saying it's dastardly or anything, but definitely it seems like they're kind of probing to try to either get OP in a gotcha moment or get them hooked on something else. I just don't understand how your partner could say, this is my favorite recipe, teach you that 10 times and you still willfully get it wrong. Does he want you to just submit to him and accept with happiness what he gives you? This next story is, am I the jerk for telling my dad that my mom isn't his business anymore? My 17-year-old male parents divorced when I was born. I never got the full story from either of them, but my aunt told me it was because my dad missed my birth because of his ex-girlfriend Mia, who is still in his life. Mia is a spoiled, annoying woman who's unbearable when my father isn't paying attention to her. They aren't dating again, but they have been best friends since childhood, so they're still close. Recently, my mom has had more free time because she started going on dates. She asked my dad if I could stay with him on one of her days, and when he came to pick me up, he saw that she was all dressed up. He asked me where she was going, and I told him the truth. He got upset and started asking me more questions, and I got frustrated and told him, "What mom does isn't your business anymore. She's not your wife." He got quiet, and when we went home, he didn't speak to me and just went to sleep. And when Mia came over the next morning, he didn't speak to her either, and I don't think he's spoken to her since. I think he told my aunt what happened, and then she told my mom because they've both been saying what I said was harsh. I mean, I just told them the truth. They've been divorced for years now. Am I the jerk? I mean, as long as they've been divorced for all those years, I don't think OP's the jerk here. It's a pretty factual statement. Honestly, everybody's reaction here makes me wonder, is there something going on behind the scenes that OP doesn't know? Even if it's not like still happening, was there like kind of like a rekindling period recently or something? You know, something that allows the father to have some kind of feelings about this still, or the aunt too? Something that gives credence to them being able to say that sounds too harsh? Either way, still not the jerk. This next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to allow my brother to live with or rent for me in a housing crisis? I, 28-year-old female, have been able to get into the housing market in a good area in a big apartment. My brother, 36-year-old male, is still living with my parents and is getting kicked out in 3 months. Rent anywhere in my city is $400 plus per week. I feel sorry for my bro who's been in and out of a job for the last 8 months, and prior to that was jobless for 2 years due to moving to a new job for burnout reasons, but then left his new job within 2 weeks due to bullying and toxicity. He had difficulty finding a job within that 2 years. He also had his car taken away because he has a lot of debt, but I don't want to live with him anymore, and I cannot trust him as a tenant. Here's why. In those 2 years, he was getting government subsidy. But my mom was shocked, heartbroken, and infuriated that she had found him to have stolen $37,000 from her, spending it on drugs, expensive shoes, and electronics. Not even using it to pay off his debt. It took a while for us to trust him again, but even so, I helped him out, buying him a new phone when his broke, paying for his gym sessions every week, buying him food, and helping to pay some bills. He now has a job that pays a good amount, but he doesn't prioritize his spending on his bills and debt. He instead buys takeout, expensive shoes, and miscellaneous want items. He is terrible with money. He's stolen from me and my mom even when earning $900 a week. Plus, he does not respect anyone's belongings at all. He's broken the bathroom light, sink plug that was built in, bathroom drain cover, my car dash cam. He has used without permission my hair and face products, which I've told him not to use because they're expensive and hard to get. He's rifled through my work bag in my room to steal from me. We both have ADHD and both use dexamphetamine, but he uses a higher dose than I do, and it was at this time that he was trying to steal my medication. He tried to lie about it when I confronted him, but at the time my parents were on holiday, so it could only have been him. Thankfully, I store my medication in a safe. I've tried talking to him, like my therapist suggested, but it is apparent that he just does not care. He even said, "I don't care," when I told him not to touch my mom's face products while they were away. He also refuses to see a therapist because he doesn't believe they help. I cannot live with him, as I'm afraid my stuff will be stolen and my belongings in my house broken. He has not looked at anywhere to rent. I don't know if he expects our parents to let him stay or that I will support him. He may be without a place to live in 3 months. Even though they're family, I don't blame OP for not helping them out here, and they're definitely not the jerk considering the history. Even if they had like a great track record, all of that history is still reason enough for OP to not be the jerk for turning them down. I mean, even in general, it's not like OP's obligated to do this even if like their sibling was the perfect angel. This next story is, am I the jerk for calling my sister privileged when she had her baby? My sister, 29-year-old female, has her first child last year. She works at a big tech company, so she got 6 months fully paid and she has a doula. I think it's what she called her, nearly full-time for the first month. Her husband is a doctor, so she gets the privilege of having a lot of money. They had a cleaner come by weekly, and her husband took a month off to be with her after the doula left. She complained to me last week about how hard it was for her to go back to work, and how she still feels tired and she doesn't feel motivated. She's complained a lot since giving birth about how she feels, and I know I should have kept quiet and let her complain, but I got annoyed. I pointed out how privileged she was for being able to get help after birth, and how she got way more time off than most people. I only get the 12 weeks FMLA, and I couldn't even take the whole thing because my boyfriend had his hours cut and we needed the money. I felt like she had basically what most people would consider heaven in terms of care, and she was complaining, which was a slap in the face to my situation. She got mad and yelled at me for making the comparison, saying it had nothing to do with me and she felt like crap regardless of what help she got. I think OP probably is the jerk here, even if they're coming from a more privileged situation than what you could go through or did go through. That doesn't mean for them that they're not experiencing a tough time. It's really kind of the toxic one-upsmanship being displayed here, where somebody says, oh, I've got it so bad, and somebody else feels entitled to say, no, well, I've got it so much worse than that. I understand OP having their own personal feelings, wishing that they had what she had, doesn't give you the right to trample over her feelings and her worries and try to marginalize those. Our next story is, am I the jerk for sending my daughter to school in her pajamas? My 7-year-old daughter, Elsie, has recently started to make mornings more difficult by throwing a fit when we ask her to get dressed for school. We've tried setting her clothes out the night before, but she still makes an issue out of it, and she doesn't want to sleep in her clothes, so that's not an option either. My wife leaves for work before me, so I'm normally the one who has to deal with the tantrums in the morning. I woke Elsie up, and as always, she refused to get dressed. I wasn't really in the mood to deal with her BS, and I didn't have the energy to fight with her about it, so I told her that it was okay, and I'll just take her to school in her pajamas. She looked pretty shocked because I don't think it was the outcome she was expecting, but the rest of the morning went a lot smoother than normal. We got in the car, and she was more quiet than usual, so I could tell she wasn't really sure what to think of it. But after a while of driving, I guess the realization set in, and she told me she wanted to go home and change. I told her she had already made her decision and I wasn't driving her back home now. She started freaking out, saying she wanted me to drive back home and she didn't want to go to school in her pajamas, but I wasn't turning the car around. So we arrived at school and she eventually went in. After my wife came home from collecting her from school, she looked upset. She didn't say anything in front of Elsie, but later in the evening, as expected, she went off on me. She started saying that I'd embarrassed her and made us look like bad parents who can't be bothered to dress our daughter. I told her that I'm sure Elsie isn't the first child to go to school in pajamas, and it's not the end of the world, and she wears normal clothes every other day, so one day in pajamas isn't going to make everyone think we're bad parents. She told me she thought it was a cruel thing to do to Elsie, but in my opinion, it was harmless, and taught her a lesson. As long as OP didn't violate any school dress codes, because for some reason, at least when I was growing up, and like elementary or middle school, they were like no pajama pants. I don't think they even allowed you to wear sandals or flip-flops to school until high school. As long as no rules or trouble was gotten into here, I think this was great for her learning about boundaries and consequences for her actions. I think it's totally reasonable for a 7-year-old to learn that lesson. Our next story is, am I the jerk for forcing my son to sell the car he's inheriting? This didn't happen yet, but my whole family is fighting over this. I'll try to make this as short as possible. My father passed away in December. He owned a classic car. I believe it's a 50s Chevy Bel Air. My son, 17, is the only grandson he had. I have one sister who has 2 daughters, and I have 2 daughters along with my son. So there are 5 grandkids in total. My dad was never much of a girls' guy. He always got along with the boys more than the girls. Him and my son were very close. He's left the car to my son in his will. The rest of the grandkids got $4,000 each. The vehicle is valued at over $70,000. My sister is livid. I am very unhappy as well. It's just blatantly unfair to his 4 other grandkids. I don't understand the legality of the situation because it was left to him, but he is currently underage. The car is currently held at my mom's house. I don't know how to force him to sell it, but I think that is what should happen, and the money can be decided equally amongst the grandkids, the way it should be. My son is very upset about this. He says grandpa left him the car, so it's his car. I have money saved for his college. I'm almost considering telling him that his college money will be divided up amongst his sisters and cousins if he refuses to sell the car. Am I the jerk? OP's a major jerk here, in my opinion. They chose to leave this inheritance specifically that way. And just because OP doesn't think it's fair, as their guardian to try to force a sale, guilt them into giving up their inheritance, or give away anything you tried to set up for his future in revenge for this injustice that he never even had a say in to begin with. This next story is, am I the jerk for not standing up for my wife against my sister and sister-in-law? I, 30-year-old male, have 2 siblings and a brother, Danny, 37-year-old female, and then my brother is married to Leah, 26-year-old female. Leah has 2 children, a 7 and 2-year-old. I've been with my wife, 27-year-old female, for 9 amazing years. She's the most incredible and loving woman I know. She's currently a primary school teacher, think 5 to 6-year-olds. We've been trying for a baby for 6 years. We've never had any luck. One day last month, my wife comes home and suddenly decides she doesn't want a baby. Now, this is from the woman whose entire career is children and has dreamed of being a mother since childhood. She wouldn't explain. She finally told me that they got a child with special education needs at the school, and she's been hit with the realization that if we have a child, eventually, would we be capable of caring for a child with special educational needs? She's just overwhelmed. We went to dinner with my parents, siblings, and nephews. Danny asked us if we had any luck recently in the baby department. My wife jumped in and essentially said tonight that she's setting the boundary that there's no children talk. She's exhausted from work and trying for so long, and she doesn't want children anymore. Danny and Leah made a joke that maybe my wife is already pregnant, hence the attitude. Wife reiterated that she doesn't want children anymore. Leah got upset, asking my wife why she's a teacher then if she doesn't like children. And Danny tagged in saying it's hardly as though we're infertile. My wife has been checked out and so have I. We both have working parts, we just don't know why we can't have children. We haven't explored it too much. I didn't say anything and continued speaking to my parents. Now I'm in the doghouse with my wife. I said if she's old enough to make this decision for the both of us, then she's old enough to set boundaries with my sister and sister-in-law. Am I the jerk? So your wife is obviously going through a lot mentally. They're obviously at their limit in regards to this discussion. Why didn't OP try to shut this down and move on to another topic? Clearly that would have been the most beneficial and caring thing to do for your partner, who's clearly very troubled by this topic. How is OP going, this is the most loving woman I've ever known, and when they're in a situation they're uncomfortable with, OP goes, listen, you made a decision I don't necessarily agree with. You're on your own dealing with it if it makes you feel bad. OP's got their priorities absolutely screwed up, and I hope they realized after posting this what a huge mistake they made in not standing up for their wife and moving that topic on. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.